Hi, hello, and welcome to the video. Whether you're someone who loves horror, loves gaming, loves overthinking, or just a game dev looking for some tips on some horror games, this is the video for you. My name's Dan Hannon, this is Overthinking Media, where you overthink all things anime, gaming, cinematic, and entertaining with the intent to start discussion on subjects that may not change the world, but are fun to overthink. Let me ask you a question. Have you watched part 1 of Isolation Horror? Because this is kind of part 2 of a series, and you probably should watch the first part because we're continuing on from there. It's just kind of a big video, so I had to break up into 2 parts. This is part 2, by the way. So if you haven't seen part 1 yet, you probably should, because it'll help make this video make a lot more sense, I think. It was one big video, so I kind of think I reference back. I mean, you don't have to watch if you don't want to, but, you know, probably help make more sense. And yeah, if you're watching a video on Isolation Horror anyway, why not watch more? This is not the best way to start a horror video, is it? When it comes to horror, is it actually necessary to make the player feel isolated? Does it improve the overall horror experience? Honestly, that's up to the individual. Isolation in some horror games is an amazing tool, and it adds to the overall feel of the game. You are alone. You are isolated. No one can help you. You have to do everything yourself. It's all on you. And if you mess up, that's it. No one's going to save you. And all you have is what you have. In most cases, the more isolated the player feels, the more powerless they feel. Which, if you want to know why that's important, go check out my video on having power versus being powerful in horror. If the game manages to remind you of the fact that you are vulnerable, that you are isolated, and that you are powerless, it can help immerse the player in the game. Because, yes, in reality, you are the main character of the game. You know you're safe. You're the main character. They can't really kill off the main character until at least the end of the game, so if you do see a threat in the game, oh no, I might die. Wait a minute. Still like 6 more hours in this game. Oh no, I've been captured and I'm definitely gonna die. There's still 4 more hours in the game. Oh no, a life and threat situation where no one's gonna save me. I'm gonna die. It's got 2 hours in the game. Oh no, a gun's being held to me. Oh, this is the game. Okay, maybe I will die. However, if a game manages to successfully immerse the player in the game so they can make that connection with the player character and feel the isolation, feel the aloneness, the player forgets the character is just made up of zeros and ones and feels the need to actually protect the character because they have made a connection and feel the same feelings as this character. Or perhaps they even see themselves as the main character because they've made a connection with the player character. Which, in context, is kind of a weird thing to think about if you think about what I just actually said. Games are good when you inflict enough emotional trauma onto the player character that you as the player are able to make a connection with that trauma and you also feel isolated. Is that the message of this video? I don't think that's the message I want to send you away with. Whoops. So, moving on to the next topic. Say a game dev does want to invoke that feeling of isolation. How would they do it? As we've already covered in part 1 of this series, you can make a player feel isolated by giving them room to breathe and make them reflect on the journey they've made so far in the game. Or, if done correctly, by doing something as simple as just muting the track or even turning the audio just down ever so slightly, it gives the level a completely different feeling to moments ago when there was sound, and hopefully invokes that feeling of aloneness. Alternatively, the game can give characters the ability to interact with you. However, you yourself are unable to interact back with them. Or, as a game dev making your game, you can physically isolate the player from the rest of their team by separating them through whatever means you want. You get separated, you get dragged away, they get trapped somewhere, the door's shut before you can get there. Whatever you want to do, you can physically separate them where you are on your own and your team is somewhere else. Or, and this one's a hard one, but when done right, is amazingly effective. Manage to make the player feel isolated and alone, even when surrounded by other characters. Specifically, other actual player characters that are real people playing the game. The Thing is an amazing example of this kind of storytelling. It shows characters being isolated and alone while still being surrounded by a team of people. It shows the ability to make a character feel isolated even when surrounded by other people. The team knows the Thing has the ability to take on the form of humans. They just don't know who or how many people are the Thing. Is that the right plural? Pronoun? I want pronoun. Plural is multiples. Yeah, they don't know how many people are a thing or the Thing. I think that's right. They don't know how many of the humans have been converted into the Thing collectively. Suddenly, they can't trust anyone, even in a group. Each human can only trust in themselves. They are isolated despite being surrounded by people. It's each person for themselves. Each human suffering from the aloneness. Or in the case of an actual game, Among Us, a game that took very clear, heavy inspiration from The Thing. It's never clear who in that game can be trusted or who's a threat. Even if you specifically see the threat and know that person is the threat, you need to convince others that you're not lying and that they are the threat and you're not the threat, making up a lie to get the person who knows your truth to be evacuated. Ejected. Evacuated? Yeah. Ejected. That's what I wanted. Yeah. Because of this, even when you're on your own or with another crew member, you feel scared. You feel isolated. You feel that feeling of aloneness because maybe you just isolate yourself with a killer or even left yourself open to be killed or even to be framed by the killer. Even when you're with another crewmate, you're never certain. So you can never not feel that feeling of aloneness. The main reason it's so hard for games like this to exist and games devs to make games like this is they need to meet certain criteria, which is very hard to actually do. The game needs to be either a multiplayer experience game with online capabilities and real people, or at the very least a procedurally generated single player game. B, a horror game, and C, needs to have the... I'm still grabbing the same finger. And C, needs to have the ability to have a traitor in the game. So, what? That's Among Us? Left 4 Dead? Sort of? Resident Evil Outbreak? Sort of? And the original GoldenEye with the golden gun? Sort of? And... No, that's all I can think of. So that's, what, 4 games where 3 of them are more like, kind of games? So, yeah, that's why it's so hard, because it's hard to make games like that. And any game that is made like that at this point will be like, oh, it's just an Among Us ripoff. Which, regardless of whether it's fun or not, people will just like, oh yeah, it's just Among Us, whatever. Where was I going with this? Alternatively, going back to what I said earlier about presentable liberty and the bug, I think one of the most effective ways the game can really reinforce that feeling of isolation and aloneness is to allow the player to have something to interact with. And that may sound counterintuitive to the very statement of isolation, but let me reiterate. Not someone, something that either can't physically help them or later gets taken away. Think Tiny Box Tim from Mark's playthrough of Amnesia. Mark interacted with this tiny box, which was just a texture file made to look like a box because he was isolated and alone, away from anyone else, who hadn't had any contact with anyone else apart from hostiles in the entire game. He made a connection with this box and it became Tiny Box Tim. And then Tiny Box Tim got lost and Mark couldn't save him. And let's just remind ourselves that this is just a random tiny box textured file in a game that doesn't matter at all. It is a box. How many of you made an emotional connection with Tiny Box Tim to the point that at the end, when Mark couldn't pick him up and save him, You would have been emotional. Not gonna lie. Yeah. I was there with Mark. It was Tiny Box Tim, and he couldn't save him. And it was a texture file. It is a goddamn texture file in a game that doesn't matter. And yet, because the feeling of isolation and aloneness and the genuine connection Mark made with this texture file made to look like a box. Once again, seriously, please go check out my video on interacting with inanimate objects. I'm not one to heavily push my videos. Like, I'll be like, hey, if you like this video, here's another video with kind of topics talking about the same thing. That, whatever, cool, that's fantastic. It's very rare I'm like, hey, go check out this video. I want you to watch the video. Watch it. Go do it. Because it's up to you whatever you want. It's freedom. I can't make you do anything. I'm not like, if you don't watch my videos, I'm not going to release any more because that's just not fun. And that I don't ever want to like hold you guys ransom or whatever. I'm going to make content regardless. But what was my point with this? My video on interacting with inanimate objects. It's one of the more important ones on this channel. It's really significant. I think it's really important, and it goes beyond just talking about games and addresses some real issues in the world. And I really shouldn't do that because I'm an idiot who just overthinks things. I should not be making those sort of videos, but I care about that topic and it matters to me, so I had to talk about it, and that's why I made that video. So please, go and check it out. A big question though is when to isolate the player and when not to. If the player is always isolated, it becomes the de facto experience. The player may even forget they're supposed to feel isolated and alone. Instead, they end up feeling like the main character, heroically making their way through the game, saving the day, fighting the monsters, and being awesome. It's in those moments the game needs those reflective moments. Those moments to ground the player and remind them, no, you are not a heroic warrior courageously fighting your way through the game. You're just a vulnerable nobody who's all alone and who got lucky enough not to be killed yet. Alternatively, if the game just keeps putting you in contact with NPCs, you very rarely feel isolated or scared. Because whenever you are playing the game, you know, oh no, I'm on my own, but I'm going to go meet up with this NPC and it's going to be awesome and it's going to be great. Or even, oh, this game's scary. There's monsters everywhere. I'm scared. Hey, a friendly NPC. Hi! So, how can a game isolate you without letting you forget that you are in fact isolated? Well, there are the grounding moments with the reflection, but they need to be used sparingly. The more you use them, the less effective they're going to be, and you need to choose the right moment to use them. Otherwise, it won't be as effective as it can. If you choose the right moment, at the right point in the game, at the critical time you can, it will invoke such a powerful feeling of reflection and remind the player that, oh god, I'm all alone. Once again, going back to Presentable Liberty, because of how good it was, seriously, if you haven't played the game yet, go play it. It's free to play, go download it. It's not so much a great time, but it's an amazing game. It'll leave you feeling very reflective at the end of it, but go play it anyway because it's such a good experience. But in that game, the game has the idea of one-way communication. And this is great. And other games can use the concept of a one-way communication to help the player feel isolated. Perhaps have the player have a faulty communicator. Maybe it got damaged from an attack. Maybe it got damaged from being smashed up against something. Maybe you were given the wrong code so you can't actually activate it to use it. Maybe it's just a one-way communicator. Maybe you're specifically being jammed. Maybe you can't respond because if you do, you'll give away your location to the enemy. Perhaps even your character is a psychic or a technopath. Whatever you choose, in doing so, the player can hear what's going on with the other characters. But they have no idea that you can hear them. Because of this, they have no reason to try and communicate with you. Or at the very least, they know you can hear, but they know you can't respond. Therefore, they're having a one-sided conversation, like in Presentable Liberty. They try and give you information, they try and tell you, we're going to rendezvous point 6. Make sure you're there, it leaves in 10 minutes. You're like, I'm half an hour away. Throughout the game, you're hearing them make their plans. But every time you do try and meet up, something is blocking your path. Something stops you from reuniting. Or even something stops you from reuniting in time. As I just said, They could have an extraction point at location X, and it's leaving in 10 minutes, but you are half an hour away. Maybe they know you can hear, maybe they don't. But if they don't know you can hear, they're saying, we're going to rendezvous point X, we're leaving in 10 minutes. If you're not there, you're dead. They're like, well, better go. And he says it to the entire team, but they don't know you can hear. So everyone responds like, yep, 6 is here, 9 here, 8, 1, 5, 7, numbers, I'm saying numbers. But yeah, everyone responds, it's like, okay, roll call, who's still alive? 1's alive, 7's alive, 9's alive, 5's alive, 6's alive, 2 alive. 10, you alive? 10, come in. 10, 10's down, okay. As long as the other 9 are all still there, we're leaving. Okay. Cool. And you're trying to make it there, but of course, as soon as you get there, it's either too late or you can't get on. When the game does this, it reminds you that you are on your own. Or maybe even have it that rendezvous point X is only 5 minutes away from you, and they're saying, hey, you've got 10 minutes to arrive. You're like, okay, cool, I can reunite. But as you go there, there's a mini boss battle that stops you, and you have to fight. And by the time you finish the battle, they've left. It fills you with enjoyment because you're like, all right, I can escape. Let's go. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Battle. Okay, right. Really quickly finish this one. Battle, battle. Okay, hold on. Leaving and... they've already left. They've already left. They've left. And I wasn't on the chopper. It's the concept of dangling hope right in front of them, only to snatch away at the last moment. It's mean, but in horror games, it's brilliant. Similarly, another way that game can do this is put the exit, put the freedom, put your way out right in front of you, except there's one roadblock in the way. Like, I rag on it because it is a dumb trope, but having one locked door between you and freedom. Maybe have it like an iron cast steel security door, where you cannot kick that down, mate. You can try grenades, you can try grenades, you can try a rocket launcher, you can try whatever you want, mate. That door ain't budging. And that freedom just beyond the door, not gonna go there, unless you can get the key for that door, but you don't have that, so... Sorry, mate. Your freedom's right there, but the door, that door ain't budging. You gotta go take the long way around. Half-Life Opposing Forces has so many little moments like this, where Shepard is presumed dead, so no one's searching for him. But every time he gets close to reuniting with his squadron, with his team, with other soldiers to reinform them that, hey, I'm still alive, I'm good, I'm ready to leave, he's always blocked by just one pathway. There's even one moment where you are going past and there's this giant glass window, and like, okay, cool, pick up chopper, I'll just destroy the glass. Glass is bulletproof. The idea of dangling hope in front of the player, only to snatch away, leaves them feeling even more isolated. Of course, there are many different ways to make the player feel isolated, and depending on the kind of game you want to make, will depend on what kind of mechanic you want to use. Let me know other mechanics or tactics you can think of that the game uses to make the player feel isolated, because my video is not the be-all and end-all. I know I've missed stuff. I haven't played every game. I know I've missed stuff. But yeah, let's start a discussion. What other games out there use what mechanics or tactics to make the player feel isolated? And hey, check out the comments. List the games that do that. Maybe you'll find a game like, hey, I haven't played that game yet. Well, that sounds interesting. I'm going to play that game. Let's start a discussion, because that is what this channel's about. Start a discussion on subjects that may not change the world, but are fun to think about. Originally, I had a small section here talking about Subnautica, but much like my video on the beginner's guide, that went from a small section here to a couple of pages to more pages to, oh yeah, this is way too big for this video. So I took this bit and I put it over here in its own video, and then Subnautica's going to get its own video on the channel. So you should go check it out. If I made it already, go check it out. It's probably a good video. I can't really say. I've kind of just got the cliff notes right now. But by the time you watch it, hopefully it'll be good. But the real question is, and the one we've been trying to ask this entire video, does isolation actually make horror better? Does it benefit horror? Does that feeling of aloneness make the overall experience more impactful? Well, depending on the game, depends on the answer. And I get that's such a lazy answer, but it's true. The vast majority of horror games do benefit from reinforcing the idea of isolation and aloneness. But that doesn't mean every horror game needs to have the feeling of isolation and aloneness. It does benefit, but certain games, certain horror games that I can't actually think of, I try to think of a few, but certain ones, it benefits them not to feel isolated. Not every game needs to use isolation and aloneness. However, if the player does feel isolated, normally it means they also feel vulnerable. which really adds to the horror experience. So, what's the takeaway from this video? To the game devs, isolation can work amazingly to help make the player feel more vulnerable, to reinforce the feeling of helplessness, to remind them that they are on their own. It also can help to make a connection between the player character and the player, creating an overall more enjoyable, memorable experience for the player. If you want to create a game that makes the player feel isolated, I believe it's important to have those moments where you remind them, where they don't just step into a status quo of like, I'm a solo survivor. No, you're on your own. You will probably die. You need to remind them that they're isolated, not just solo adventuring. They didn't choose a solo adventure. They were pushed into the solo survival. It can be as simple as just having a moment where you see the dead body of one of their teammates, or even just the body of someone else in the company, another human, a reminder that, right, yeah, death, I'm lucky to be alive. Something that helps remind the player of the situation they find themselves in, the isolating, vulnerable, powerless situation that they're in. To remind them that they're not a superhuman, they're just a lonely nobody who so far has got lucky and hasn't died. To you, the players, the takeaway is this. For the games that really have elicited that feeling of isolation, that have made you feel isolated, for those games that have made you take a moment and think, for the games that have made you pause the game because you needed a moment because of just how impactful that moment was, for the games that left such an emotional impact on you that even years after you've played them, you can still go back to that memory and return to that feeling you had when you played that game. Take a moment and leave a good review for that game. Go tell the creator. Tell them how the game made you feel. Remind them that you loved the experience, that their game was good. Because so many people only leave a review when they have something negative to say. They have something bad to say. They want to criticize. They want to say, I didn't enjoy this, or this was bad, or I didn't like this, so I'm going to voice my opinion. And so many people that had an amazing experience never voiced their opinions because I'm in a good mood, I'm happy, hooray, yay! And they just go over their life because they're in a good mood because of what the game made them feel, or the impact the game had on them. They were like, that was an amazing game. Wow. But they don't take the moment to go, that was an amazing game. Wow. I'm going to leave a review and say how amazing this game is so people can find it. They just go, that was an amazing game. And people go, that was a bad game. I'm going to go tell everyone. I'm going to leave my 1-star review. Huh. And yeah, some games it's justified. Like 1-star review, if it really is a 1-star game, then that's justified. But every game was made by a creator. And as long as it isn't an easy cash grab, steal your information, malicious game, even a 1-star game was still made by someone who cared. Maybe they're not the best game developer. Okay, everyone starts somewhere. And you need to remember that. As long as it's not clearly a scam or a cash grab or a game with malicious intent, even terribly made games are still made with a passion. So for the games that have had such a literal emotional reaction on you, the ones that have left you feeling isolated, the ones that have had an emotional connection, the ones that made you pause the game, the ones that made you reflect, the ones that left you speechless, go and tell the creators. Go tell them how impactful their game would be, how much love and care they put into the game, that you felt what you did. Especially if they're an indie dev, because that one good review can cut through the 10 bad ones. And just a reminder that, yeah, you're an indie developer and you're trying something. And yeah, some people may not like it, and those people might voice their dislike of it. But there are thousands of people who did enjoy it, they just didn't voice it. And there's only 100 people that didn't like it. But because 100 people all said they didn't like it, it just sounds like bad reviews. So go tell them. Go tell the game devs that you enjoyed their game. And finally, about my own video. If you did enjoy this, tell me. That it sounds arrogant maybe, but you've watched the entire video, so if you have enjoyed this, by all means tell me. If you didn't like it, by all means also tell me. But word it constructively. If you legitimately didn't like this video, and there is a constructive, valid reason for that, by all means tell me. I'm always looking to improve my content. And if you did enjoy it, tell me. Leave a like, whatever it is. And hey, if you do want to stay on my latest content, let's see if I can say it on the first try! If you want to step to learn my latest content, make sure to slap that subscribe button like a spooky, scary, successfully strong Salty Savins sourly swims southward singing scary songs successfully to stay up to date with my latest content. I don't think I got that right, but I'm still loving it, like McDonald's. I'm in a giddy mood. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. And once again, if you've played a game that you've really enjoyed and you haven't left a good review for it, go tell the game dev. Make their day, give them something to smile about. Not that game devs are all depressed, but give them another reason to smile. And hey, if you like my horror videos, there's a playlist up there you can go watch a ton more horror videos I've made. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.